Hey guys, good morning. Today we are going to talk about midpoint. So we have some notes to fill in together. Again, I will attach these to the assignment today so you can print them and fill them in if you'd like, or you can completely write them with me, pausing when you need to. So we've been looking at linear functions and graphing linear functions. And in a linear function, there are multiple points that you can graph. We see those represented by dots that cross at a perfect crosshair between x coordinates and y coordinates. So on a graph, for example, over here, this dot is exactly in all four of the corners of this square. So it's exactly on 2 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis. And so we have a lot of those points on graphs. But midpoint formula will help you find the middle of a specific line segment that you're looking at, or the middle of 2 points to find another point that's exactly in the middle of them. And if you don't have a graph or a visual of this and you just have the points, there is a formula that you can plug these points into to help you. So obviously, if you add up the two x's from the 2 points they've given and divide it in half, you'll get the middle of those two x values. If you add up the y values and divide it by 2, you'll be cutting it in half, and you'll be finding the middle. So from this point to this point, we want to see how far these x's are away from each other and then divide it by 2 to find the middle. We want to add these y values up and divide it by 2 to find the middle. So you're getting the halfway point. So I think this is a really easy formula, but we're going to go through and fill in these examples together and then do some examples where either they gave you the midpoint and an end point, or they just gave you two endpoints and you have to find the middle. So let's do these together. So the first one says find the midpoint of a segment with endpoints 4, -1, 6, -5. Okay, so if this were to be visually drawn on a graph, there would be 2 points. One point would be at 4, -1, and one point would be at 6, -5. And you'd have a little line segment, and they would want you to find the middle of those 2 points. So if we plug it into our formula here, 4 plus 6 is 10, right? 4 plus 6 is 10. And I got these numbers because my formula tells me to do x1 and x2. So the first x value is 4, the second x value is 6. Remember, we always label our ordered pairs. This is x in the first coordinate, y in the first coordinate, x in the second coordinate, y in the second coordinate. So my x's combined is 10, divided by 2 is 5. My y's, -1 plus -5 is -6. Remember, when we add or subtract with signs, if it's the same sign, just add them together and keep the sign. So -1 and -5 is -6. Divided by 2 is -3. And if you need to use a calculator for that, feel free, you can. So this point, 5, -3, is the middle point between these two. And it's literally that simple. So let's do another one. Find the midpoint of a segment with these two endpoints, -3, 5 to -4. So I labeled my points x1, y1, x2, y2, as you see. So I know how to plug them in. So my x1 is -3, my x2 is 2. So these are the two x values, -3 and 2. And then the two y values are 5 and -4. 5 plus -4, or 5 minus 4. So for this one, -3 plus 2 is -1. And again, you can use a calculator if you need to, or you can draw out a number line. If you are down at -3 and you come up 2, now you're just down at -1. So this is -1 over 2. And then 5 minus 4, or 5 plus -4, is 1 over 2. So the middle of these 2 points would be -1/2, 1/2. Don't freak out if your answer is a fraction. It doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay, and this last one is another example of how they might give you the problem. So what they've done this time is that they've told you the midpoint. The midpoint of this line segment, AB, is -3, 2. And they're representing the midpoint by putting an M in front of this ordered pair to let you know that this ordered pair is the midpoint. A and B are the two ending dots. M is going to represent the middle. One endpoint, A, is -7, -4. So that's the ordered pair for that one endpoint. What is the coordinates of the endpoint B? So I wrote right here, if one midpoint and endpoint are given, but not two endpoints, make a table and count the difference in the x values and the y values. We did this when we were trying to find our slope from a table. We're doing the same thing here. So what you want to do is make a table. You're going to have the end of your line, up here, then the middle is in the middle, and then the other end will be down here, so that it's going in order from one point to the middle to the other point. Now, we know the first end point is -7, -4, and they told us what the middle was. So if from one endpoint to the middle, we can figure out how they're moving, it's going to be the exact same thing from the middle to the next endpoint. So from the endpoint -7, -4 to the midpoint -3, 2, our x's are moving up 4. From -7 to -3, what is happening? We are adding 4. -7 plus 4 is -3. From -4 to 2, what's happening? We've added 6. -4 plus 6 is +2. If you need to draw a number line to say, how do I get from -4 to 2, what's happening? You'll see that you're actually moving right 6 spaces, which is positive. So we're going to apply that same pattern again. -3 plus 4 is 1. 2 plus 6 is 8, which means our endpoint value is actually now going to be 1, 8. That's endpoint B. So now let's do some examples. There are 3 examples on this next page of notes. Together we're going to do. The midpoint of this line segment, CD, is 4, -1. And one of the endpoints is 6, 0. So what's the other endpoint? Well, since they gave us one end and the middle, we're not looking for the midpoint. We wouldn't use the midpoint formula because they've already told us the midpoint. What we're looking for is the other end. So we're going to make our table and figure out what the pattern is. So from the first endpoint to the middle, what are we doing to get to that number? From 6 to 4, we subtracted 2. And from 0 to -1, we subtracted 1. So we're going to apply that same pattern here. We're going to subtract 2 and subtract 1. Well, 4 minus 2 is 2. -1 minus 1 is -2. Remember, when the signs are the same and we're adding or subtracting, you add them together and keep the sign. So my final endpoint for point C is going to be 2, -2. Okay, let's look at this next one where a visual graph was given to you and they're asking you for the midpoint. So the first thing we need to do is find the coordinate of the 2 points that have been plotted here, since they didn't tell us what those points are. So G, if we look at this dot right here, we need to figure out what is that ordered pair. So we're going to go over 1, 2, and up 1, 2, 3. So over 2, up 3. We know that this is our x-axis. This is my y-axis. Right? So we went over 2, up 3. Ordered pairs are always represented with the x first and then the y. So I need to move on the x-axis first and then the y. Now to get h, I need to move over 3 on the x-axis and down -3 on the y-axis. So that's actually going to be 3, -3. Now that we know what these 2 points are, we can plug them into the midpoint formula and find the middle. So this is going to be my x's added together, 3 plus 2, and then this is going to be my y's added together, -3 plus 3. So 3 plus 2 is 5, divided by 2 is 2.5. And again, if you need a calculator for this, please feel free to grab one. And then negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Divided by 2 is just 0. Nothing divided into more pieces is still just nothing, right? So that's 0. So if we look on this graph, this point, 2.50, this is my x, this is my y, should be the middle. So let's check it out. 2.5 on the x-axis, and I don't move up or down at all in the y-axis because my y coordinate is 0. So 0 on the y-axis is right here, and 2.5 on the x-axis is right here. That is the middle of these 2 points, and it seems to be true. Great job. We've got one more down here, and I've given you 2 endpoints, and I want you to find the middle. Okay, so this is just like the other page. So we'll plug in our x's and plug in our y's. My x's combined together are -1 and 3. My y's combined together are -5 and -2. So -1 plus 3 is 2, right? If we're at -1 on a number line and we go up 3, we actually end up getting at 2. So 2 over 2 is just 1. And -5 plus -2, since they have the same signs, we can add them together but keep the sign, actually becomes -7 divided by 2. Which will be 3.5. 7 divided by 2. So this point is the middle of these points. So there are different ways that information can be given and that you can find the answers. They may give you an endpoint in the middle, and you find the other endpoint by using a table and just figuring out what that pattern is. They may graphically show you 2 points, and you can actually, if you want to, you can count what this would be and find the middle of that. So if I moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, half of 6, instead of going up 6, I'm going to go half of that, I'm only going to go up 3. And instead of going over 1, half of that is half. So if this is 6, 1, half of that is 3, half. So you can do that as well, or as always, you can plug it into the formula once you know what these 2 points are and get your ordered pair that way. And then, of course, if they give you 2 endpoints, you can use your formula to find the midpoint as well. So those are your notes today on midpoint, and I hope that this helps you with your assignment whenever I see you in class.